Everybody with us this evening. I see that we're recording. So at 6 p.m., I'm going to call to order the virtual monthly village board meeting for the Village of Sister Bay on Tuesday, November 15th, 2022. Roll call, Zashki here.
Baker here.
Bell here.
Berto here.
Cox here.
Lyons here.
Bronco here.
Excellent. For those of you who are interested in joining, we'll rise and on the count of three, recite the Pledge of Allegiance. 1, 2, 3. I pledge allegiance
To
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Heidi. I will motion that we approve the agenda as published. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. I will motion that we approve the meeting minutes from the October 18th, 2022 regular village board meeting as published. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Heidi, is there anything of particular summary from comments or from correspondence that,
We only had the
Anything
two
late or
letters
anything
that were
to note?
included in the packet.
okay, thank you. This time I'll ask the public if anyone has any comments or concerns on a non-agenda item this evening. Hearing none, I will move us along to agenda item number 7, the ordinances. Starting with 7A, ordinance number 303, amending chapter 18 on short-term rentals as approved with the changes that were noted in our packet from the October meeting. And those board requested changes are included. Staff summary is on page 22 for this recommendation. Do we have any discussion on this or a motion?
I got a question on the quiet hours. A couple things. Is that different than other residences? And also, when it says plainly audible, I know my home, if it were to become a vacation rental, when the garbage comes to pick up my garbage at 7:50 in the morning or 8:10 in the morning, it makes a lot of noise. A lot of people have their lawn care done in the morning, whether it be a neighbor cut their grass or any other resident cutting their grass after 8 o'clock. So I just want to make sure that the common sense things that apply to all of our homes in the village would apply to these rentals too.
What do you mean specifically by residences, Chad? Other residences? I'm not following.
What I'm saying is, like, if a vacation rental can't have their grass cut until 10 a.m., but I can cut my grass at 8 a.m., that doesn't make sense. Right? And that's very audible. Like a lawnmower is very loud. That, to me, that would be a violation of how this ordinance is written. And it's a very common sense thing where a lot of lawn care companies, they're going all day. They start in the morning, they end at night.
Good
A lot
point.
of residences, individuals in the village cut their grass before 10 a.m. I just want to make sure before we make these changes that somebody's not going to get struck twice because a neighbor hears a lawnmower, the lawn guy coming after 8. Again, if a garbage guy, if a garbage truck, which is very loud, which sounds like it would be a violation of this, if it comes to my house and I make my house a vacation rental, I'm going to be in violation of this code. So
Now, look,
I just
Chad-
want to hear how you guys thought through that.
Yeah, just to add to that, Chad is making a good point. I've got a lot of rentals on the street I live, and it's 7 in the morning. There's a whole lot of loud leaf blowing right now going on. So it's a good point.
I would personally, I get the vagary of it that you're referencing, Chad. Personally, I would consider lawn work as, included in, since it's required, since it's being deemed necessary by the property owner, just as any of us would deem necessary cutting our own lawn, that falls under the grounds of to be held at a minimum. I don't see it as being excessive. I see it as being standard. To me, what we're saying it when we, and maybe we want to clarify the wording, but to be held to a minimum to me means nothing outside of normal. Normal would be somebody needs to cut their grass in the morning, they do it. Abnormal would be somebody in a short-term rental, not aware of the neighborhood situation, deciding to wash their vehicle and have the music playing full blast from their, car while they're doing it, something like that.
And I know the intent is good. All I'm doing is dodging us having to change it again, because again, plainly audible, that's very, very broad. Lots of things are plainly audible that are done on a normal basis. So not a lot, I guess, but those are the couple that just came to my mind real quick.
So,
Rob, can I just comment on this real quick?
yes, and then we'll get to Denise. Sure. Go ahead, Julie.
So the board is not changing the quiet hours that were adopted. That is not changing at all. What the board adopted last year is still what is adopted. What's changing is we have always said quiet time was 10 to 10. One of the changes with this code is it just gives it a definition of what is expected in quiet time.
Okay,
it's
so my example, how would my example apply? I know Rob's interpretation, and I agree, Rob. I want it to be interpreted with common sense, but oftentimes things aren't. And so how would a lawnmower going for an hour and a half, starting at 8 o'clock in the morning, not be a violation of how this is written?
To be honest with you, I would refer back to our the other codes which define what's a nuisance. And
Okay,
if it's a nuisance occurring during that quiet time, then I would follow up on that. If it doesn't,
so we're covered because of how the nuisance part is written.
Okay.
right. With the
Okay,
changes
good.
coming with
That's
that.
all I want to hear.
On the plus side, I would say the manner in which it was written may in fact cause short-term rental owners to use the discretion of not setting up appointments like that before 10 a.m.
Most of them don't get the choice. When you
Yeah.
get some grass, they show up when they show up.
Okay, anything else for discussion?
Denise,
Denise?
On page 25, under property rules, F, the red, I think it's just a typo. I think we need to add the word into the contact information for the refuse company who the owner or agent has entered into a contract to service the short-term rental.
I think it would be, yeah, or just say who the owner or agent has contracted. Was the note I made.
and two would be all right.
The contact information for the refuse company who the owner or agent has contracted to service the short-term rental is about as simple as possible. If you think it's necessary to say entered into a contract,
I don't really care. It's just not grammatically correct.
all right, I would suggest the grammatical fix of has contracted to service. Not hearing any disagreement with that,
Nope.
so we would consider that to be an amendment, a fix to that. So I will motion that with that change as noted, we approve the ordinance on short-term rentals as presented this evening.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 7B, ordinance number 304, elected official and committee member compensation. As we approved at the October board meeting last month, staff summary is on page 28. The actual ordinance follows. Do we have any discussion or questions on this? Denise?
page 29. I thought last month when we talked about this, the Plan Commission chair was supposed to get $3,000. And then with the additional monthly or annually of 1,800, that would have brought it up to 4,800. Am I correct with that or am I wrong? I know Nate was the one who brought that up.
That's not what I intended. How it's written is actually how I had, what I intended.
Oh. Okay.
So that the 4,800 will be dispersed on a monthly, it'll be equated out monthly.
Okay, on that same page, item number 6, it talks about the zoning board of adjustment. I think we're the zoning board of appeals.
Appeals, yeah.
And I don't quite understand the next sentence. The Board of Trustees adopted committee bylaws shall be compensated in the amount of $50 per village board and or village plan commission meeting. That's a non-trustee. We talked about the plan commission getting $100. And there, if you're already a trustee, you're getting 100, but Plan Commission is a lot of work and very large packets and a lot of thinking and research. So I think Plan Commission and Board of Appeals, along with village board meetings, were all supposed to be 100 across the board.
They were. That's what we agreed on.
Okay, so just so I understand, the trustees are getting $100 and this says that the other plan commission and zoning board of appeals members get $100 as well. So what part of it should be changed?
I don't see any reference to trustees getting $100 for a board meeting in here.
It's in the next section. Section 7 talks about that.
I don't see it. I see plan commission members and zoning board of appeals members who are not trustees shall be compensated for each meeting they attend at a rate of 100 per meeting. That does not say trustees are compensated $100 per village board meeting.
That's in section 4. Section 6 was the other committees that are not plan commission members or zoning board of appeal members, so they get $50 per meeting.
Section 4 says it's 100.
For a trustee.
Okay,
All right, but
well,
will
if
it-
you guys understand that, that's good. For me.
okay, well, I just read it wrong. So where it says in 6 and 7, zoning board of adjustment, will change that to appeals.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Then on page 30, section 12, effective
Yes.
date, said salaries shall become effective for each trustee and appointed committee member upon passage and upon becoming newly elected or elected to a new term and upon qualifying for the respected position. So it references newly elected or elected, but it doesn't say appointed, but it says appointed up in the first sentence. So is it covering all the bases?
I believe it is. I think, as we know, this is for the next board that comes on, the next group that's appointed. I believe
Okay.
that they're covered.
Okay,
Okay,
right.
Chad?
Well, just to know, because I wasn't at the last meeting, is this to bring it in line with other villages? Is the intent of this to, where did this come from?
It came
So,
from this.
go ahead.
Go ahead, Julie.
So it came from looking at our bylaws. The state statutes require that the compensation schedule be adopted by ordinance and that it has to be adopted prior to people taking out their election papers. So somebody who's running for election has to know what the salary for that position is before they actually take out the papers.
So this is just more housekeeping than anything?
Yes.
Okay.
And in some cases, there was relevant discussion as to why for non-trustees or other, why certain pay rates should be raised. For instance, we discussed the zoning board of appeals. They don't meet that often, but when they do, there's a lot of stuff for them to study, and that the $100 seemed justified. Length of board packet, plan commission, packet, length of meeting, it seemed justified.
Okay.
Especially considering, some of those other committees, trying to fill spots to at least, show that somebody would be getting paid at a rate that, would be worth their while.
I think it's not so much being worth their while as these people are likely taking off of other jobs. So they're trying to lose less money is really how I would phrase that.
Okay,
Cool, thank you.
Okay, do we have a motion? I'll motion that we approve the board compensation for the coming post-election season as noted in the packet.
second,
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Resolutions. 8A, resolution number 504. The final plat for the Cove condominium. Staff recommendation to approve is on page 32 of our packet. Do we have any discussion or any questions for staff? Or for our plan commission chair? Do we have a motion to approve?
I will make that motion, Rob.
Second,
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 8B, resolution number 497, the 2023 Village of Sister Bay budget. That starts on page 67 in our packet. Tasha, I know there were several last minute tweaks. Is there anything you want to mention, or Julie, is there anything you want to mention before discussion on this?
I don't really have much to mention. I was able to continue to get the budget to be balanced and incorporate some of the changes that had been suggested at the prior meeting.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any discussion on the budget materials as presented? Denise?
Page 68 in Tasha's report, I was curious to a couple of the bullet points. The allocation of public works employees' time was changed to break out seasonal decorations, fireworks, and SBAA associated time, and costs related to Fall Fest were separated from parks and public works line items. Why?
So that we can better understand how much the village is spending on those events.
Okay.
Any other questions for Tasha?
I have nothing.
I will motion that we approve the resolution on the 2023 Village of Sister Bay budget as presented.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Item number, resolution number 8C, dealing with resolution number 503, adopting the increase in the Sister Bay Liberty Grove Fire Department budget for 2023. We've got our resolution before us on page 101 of the packet. Do we have any questions or discussion on this resolution?
Denise does.
Denise?
Page 101 on the resolution itself. It talks about the village's share, the increase of $4,100 to section D, line 1 of the 2022 municipal levy limit worksheet. How is that going to affect us moving forward?
This is the entire reason we do this resolution every year, so that we can when we can take this adjustment. And that allows us to apply a little bit less debt to our levy limit and gives us more room in the future.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? I will motion that we approve resolution number 503, adopting the increase in the Sister Bay Liberty Grove Fire Department budget for 2023 as presented.
Second,
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Item 8D, resolution number 502, release of committed funds. Appearing on page 104 in our packet. Any questions for Tasha on this? The matter before us is to make sure the $20,000 from a separate resolution remains committed for the comprehensive plan, and another 20,000 remains committed for the Wiltsey property design plan.
Yes, if we commit funds by resolution, we must release them by resolution. So this is releasing the funds for the fire department siding, historical society, and some GIS and other contracted work.
I will motion that we approve resolution 502 on the release of committed funds as presented.
second,
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried.
I have a question before we move on.
Yes, Denise.
Does that just not make more work that if we commit funds by resolution, then we have to go through all this rigmarole to release them? Why do we want to do that?
Because otherwise we have quite a unassigned fund balance, and this kind of tells us it designates some of that fund balance to these one-time expenses. And so it's just it's a way of managing those funds a little bit better.
Okay, seems like extra work that we don't need to do, but okay.
I think though too, when you adopt them, if you adopt by resolution, you always have to dissolve by resolution. So, Tasha, were those funds adopted by resolution originally?
Yes,
That's why you have to do it by resolution.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Moving on to 8E, resolution number 498, the creation of a village hall planning task force is noted on page 107 in the packet. Approved as designed at the last board meeting, and a resolution is now required. Do we have any discussion or commentary? Hearing none, I'll motion. What?
I got a question.
Yes, Jeff.
How many board members were put on there? I remember reading it, but I couldn't find it here real
Two.
quick.
Two.
Just two. Okay, good. I
And
thought I
when we
read.
publicly, in public forum at open meeting with the public present, asked for trustees as well as citizens and residents to approach staff and or I regarding interest on serving. Basically, Don Cox and I are willing to serve on the committee. So we are on it.
And that's
We'll
already
see later.
confirmed.
Because the only thing I was gonna say, not to, with all the committees we have and all the committees we have and all the committees we have, you and Don can both serve on it and still have the requirement be one board member and one can be a citizen, kind of like Mary is on the ad hoc park or the recreational one, and she isn't on as a board member, she was on as a citizen. Because I think I saw that one altered to say 3 board members, which it should never say 3 board members. That's just too hard to get on some of these ad hoc committees. I'm just saying, you don't have to have it be 2. You can have 2 on there, one serve as a citizen, one as a board member. That's all.
Okay. Any other commentary, discussion? A motion that we approve the resolution as presented for the creation of the Village Hall Planning Task Force.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 8F, resolution number 499, a creation of the Emergency Management and Hazard Mitigation Planning Task Force. Noted on page 110 in our packet. Julie, for those who weren't present last week, could you just quickly summarize why we essentially have to start this up again in this new form?
Sure, we are required to actually have an emergency management plan. And then, of course, a hazard mitigate, or is it the hazard mitigation one? I can't remember offhand, but we are required to do some emergency planning. And we did have a we did have a group put together a couple years ago. COVID hit, they weren't able to meet, so they were only able to meet twice. So what we're doing is dissolving the old one, incorporating a little more responsibility in it, and then revising it or creating it again so we can start meeting on it. I think the old plan did not talk about the hazard mitigation planning part of it. This one does include the hazard mitigation planning portion.
Denise?
So when I was reading through this, and then the resolution does not match what's on page 223, and it is not the same as the bylaws either. When it talks about who's on it.
Let me think. You and I talked on the phone last week.
Right, but it's 3 different documents.
Yeah.
And they're not the same. So I would suggest that we table this until next month, so all 3 documents exactly are the same about who the membership is.
Okay, I probably changed one and not the other. Just a mistake on my part. We can do that. That means that we'll have to take that part out of the committee and board bylaws, adopt them so that we're compliant on that, and then next month amend them again. So to include this one. Not a big deal. It's just that we're amending our bylaws every month. So at least we get
Let
it
me
cleared
ask a
up.
question. Is it possible that we can just, for the moment, table this agenda item until we get to the pages in the 200s as mentioned? And then if it's clear to all which of the forms we would be utilizing and which we would be discarding, then we could just take care of this tonight?
Yes.
Okay, I would suggest that we give that a go rather than just kick the can down the road all the way till next month. Let's see if we can solve it when we get up to it.
Okay,
All right? Okay. So at this time, we'll table 8F until further in the meeting. And we will move to 8G, resolution number 500 to dissolve the Youth Center Board as approved at the October meeting. Any discussion or commentary on this? Hearing none, I'll motion that we approve the resolution to dissolve the Youth Center Board as noted in the packet this evening.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 8H, resolution number 501, the Board of Trustees bylaws. We have a staff report on page 116 in the packet. In reading Julie's write-up, in particular, the section in red pertaining to the Outdoor Recreation and Transportation Planning Committee and the lack of operational bylaws for that committee. It appears to me we need to agree on them tonight. Unless somebody feels differently. I know that was information that had been requested for some time and did not come in. Do you have a suggestion, Julie, based on, in summary of your write-up? Or some,
Well, yeah, if I, So when it comes to the outdoor rec one, what happened is we had approved a committee, but we never approved a makeup of it. The chair was supposed to come back and present a list of people. That didn't happen, but we
Yes, it
started meeting. So
That was in front of a board meeting. I distinctly remember that.
Yeah, that happened. Because it says here 3 trustees, and I remember it being 2 trustees. He got Mary as a citizen. Yeah, I think even either just after she was voted or just before. So it shouldn't be 3 trustees. There happens to be 3 trustees on there, but one of them is just a citizen member. Because 3 trustees would be a lot to ask for any committee like this, I think. So I remember that meeting. I remember that discussion.
yeah, so we had discussions, what we found, I'm not saying it's right, but what we found, when Heidi and I were looking through them was, it was talked about, but it was never formally appointed. So this would just be a cleanup on that. And to make sure it does get appointed. And then also if we want to clean that up, we should at this time, make sure, because this is what actually sets that committee, right? It also says for citizens, it doesn't require them to be residents. Is that something we want to do? Because this is the future of our park and rec infrastructure for the village. So should we have some residents on there? I think we should, but that's up to you guys.
I think we should change it to 2 trustees and 5 residents.
That's too many residents, and here's why I'll say that. I mean, I'm all for residents, but they're harder and harder to find to do this stuff. There's a lot more expertise and people willing to help us, because there's a lot of believers that believe that if we get something going here, it'll go other places, and they're for this kind of activity, connectivity all throughout Door County. I would love to have just an endless supply of citizens that want to do this, but going through this all the time, it's just not that way.
How would it sound if we said 2 trustees and 3 citizens, at least one of which is a resident?
I think I really think that they all need to be residents.
Okay. Then my question would be, do we really need to have 7 people?
So
Well, now it's,
Dennis,
well,
I think
you're
it's- I think there's- Sorry.
Denise, when we approved Fuzzy, who moved out of the village, and Dwight Anderson, who moved out of the village to stay on the Marina Committee, because they care about the village and the marina, and they have really great, vast knowledge. Nobody had a problem with that. And I think it's
no,
better.
because they had
it's better for the marina.
expertise. Yeah,
But that's what I'm saying. There are people out there that have a lot more expertise and knowledge that may not be a village resident that care as much. Like
okay.
And why
Brian
haven't they stopped-
Fitzgerald is involved in biking and connectivity more than anybody I know in this village. He's willing to give his time to our village because he thinks the things that this committee and Nate are leading could do great things. I don't see why we would want to limit ourselves. I
Okay.
get it, but I don't think it's going to help us. It's just not going to make us stronger.
Okay,
So do we need more than 5 people on this committee?
Mary's got her hand raised.
Yeah, I see.
Yeah,
I'm going back to the question that I asked that I posed to the forum that was not answered because somebody else interjected something. So we'll get to Mary as soon as that question is answered. Does anyone believe there needs to be more than 5 people on this committee?
I think that's all right.
Okay, I'm not hearing that anyone believes.
I really want to hear what Mary has to say before I say my opinion on that.
Okay, Mary?
I would say that the more people that you add to a committee, the messier it will get as far as opinions go. And so you want like a more focused group on people who are actually committed to the vision of what you're going for. And if you have more than 5 people, there will just be more and more conflicting opinions. And so you want, like I just said, a more focused group is my opinion.
I agree with you 100%, Mary. I think it's an excellent point. And that's part of the, my rationale for asking the question. So if we don't need more than 5, then, and we want to pay heed to the relevance of the point Chad raised about potential expertise outside of a resident, would it sound appropriate to say 2 trustees and 3 citizens, at least one of which is a resident? Which makes there be the requirement that at least one of them is a resident. Does anyone
Yep, I
object to
think that
that?
sounds reasonable. I think that sounds very
Good with
reasonable.
that.
Okay,
Good.
I think it's reasonable, but I also think that any recommendation like that is, that board is only going to make recommendations. So it's ultimately going to come in front of the village board and really the Parks Committee first. So I think that I understand wanting to get resident involvement. And as somebody that spent quite a bit of time trying to get people engaged in that with very minimal success, finally looking beyond the village to do that. I don't think it's that important, but if that's what everybody else thinks, I can get on board for. I appreciate the fact that we're opening it up beyond village residents. I think that ultimately, for my choice, I would say we don't have any requirement on there other than the board members.
okay, I'm gonna motion that we.
Rob?
Yes, oh, sorry, Denise, I didn't see your hand up. Go ahead.
That's okay. We have to come back to this also because this is on the top of page 119. This is what I was referencing. The makeup of emergency management does not coincide with the other 2 places that it's in.
Yeah, I think we should look at all the areas that are red, and discuss them. So that would be, and I see what I did, Denise, here. There were, I had a draft of it that said, it would be the board president, the plan commission chair, et cetera. And we changed it where it should be, if I remember right, Denise, board president, 2 trustees, the county emergency management director or their representative, and the fire chief. And I think we added one, didn't we add 1 resident to it? Trying to remember.
No, that's scratched out
Yeah.
on page, at least on page 119. I don't know that we need a resident on this particular committee.
Okay, I think the
Which
big
now,
change,
which committee are we talking about now?
Emergency management.
Okay, is it possible to just bring closure to 8H? Or is it all part, do we have to go through this whole, everything in red now, Denise? Is that your point?
we
So
do.
that-
We
okay,
do.
okay.
Yeah.
All right, so then do we want to, so we're gonna start with emergency management because it's the first one in red,
Yes.
okay? And what is your suggestion for this one, Denise?
I'm not saying I have a suggestion. It's what I said a couple of agenda items ago, that on page 101, 119, and 223, the makeup of the committee is all different. So we have to determine what the makeup of the committee is, so it's correct on all 3 places.
Okay, so on 223, Julie, how are we different on 223 than 119?
Let me scroll through it real quick.
I'll get to it.
On what page did you say? 223. Oh, Lordy.
Those 2 look
I
like. they're the
I don't
same.
see any difference in 119 and 223.
Okay, well then look back on page 101 where we were.
Okay,
Or maybe it's not 101. I don't know
well,
what page.
119 and 223 are both the same.
No, okay.
The resolution includes law enforcement.
There we go. 111, excuse me.
Okay, so we need to strike law enforcement from 111.
I think
Okay.
what we need to do is after we adopt the bylaws and the committee, because it is the same in both of those, if I'm reading it correctly. And then when we go back to the tabled item, we just say per the bylaws and committee bylaws adopted. If we're okay with that.
Okay. I'm fine with that. Chad?
And I know maybe I'm just getting a little excited here about people that know what they're talking about in a lot of these things, but I'm pretty sure Bobby City, who's a village resident, who's also, I think, a lieutenant with the sheriff's department, he'd probably be willing to serve on this. And I think it would make the committee better. And I'm not saying it has to be a law enforcement, but the idea that it could be, probably is only going to help with this thing. And that's where, no offense to any of us board members, but there's a lot of people out there that have a lot more expertise than many of us. And why not try to see if we can bring them in, and why limit it to us?
I think I don't know if they would have to be there for the entirety, but I think if we got to some particular issues within the document that we would want to invite him to and have a meeting with him, it would be appropriate. But for him to be at all of those meetings when a lot of it would not necessarily pertain, and when we're getting into the weeds on how it is we're going to handle things.
But that's where, I mean, his expertise is that's what he does for a career, is how you handle things and how you come up with plans and how you have a backup plan and a backup. Like, it's what their profession is very much about in many regards. And I'm not saying he would or has time. I'm just saying those are some of the resources that are out there that we're just not allowing ourselves to even possibly have.
But we can
Well,
invite
we
him.
allow ourselves to have them anytime we want to invite them to come for a particular meeting.
I get that, but being invited to a meeting or being on a committee is two different things. When you're on there and you're involved, you're just whatever. It's not that big of a deal, I guess. It probably will never meet. Just another dumb idea.
Okay, so if we got 119 and 223 in concurrence, and Julie, you know how we're going to phrase that when we go back for that motion, then the next one.
Well, 223 does not match. It says representative from Door County Emergency Services. The other says Door County Emergency Management.
Director.
Okay, well, how about Denise? How about, they're essentially saying the same thing with the wording a little different. So do you want to pick, which one do you like better, 119 or 223?
Well, emergency services is not, that's not emergency management. So you want to use the word management. And on one of the other ones, if we're looking at just page,
Let's try and bring closure to this one.
I am trying to bring closure.
So do you?
Can I finish?
Go ahead.
So it does not talk about the village clerk on 119. So Julie, do you feel that that is imperative that the village clerk be here, and do we need to include her here?
I'm sorry, Denise, on the emergency management one.
Yes.
I do think the clerk should be involved in that. I haven't talked to Heidi about that one, but I do think she should be involved. She has a pretty good knowledge of the resolutions that have been passed, and some of the other things that the village has going on. And I think she can also help answer how we can go about getting some of the resolutions or things that we produce actually brought forward. I do think she should be there. Just real quick, there is a difference between emergency services and emergency management. So Emergency management would be Dan Kane.
Yep.
Emergency services would be Erin Leclerc, and I believe we want Dan Kane. So we want
Correct.
emergency management.
Yes.
I will make all those consistent. To say emergency management.
Okay.
Do we want are we gonna revise 119 or 223? And how are they, unless we don't say we're revising one and using that for both of them?
We're starting with revising 119, which then sets the tone for the other two.
So do you want me to take a stab at summarizing this for you? 119 is going to add village clerk. 223 will change emergency services to emergency management and add the village clerk. And then they should be the same.
Other than the fact 119 will say the director or their representative from emergency management, and there's no reference to director in 223.
I'm fine with that, depending upon, maybe sometimes the director will be able to make it, maybe sometimes they will send somebody else from their department. I'm okay with that particular wording.
So that's what I'm trying to get at. Ultimately, 119 and 223 have to say the same thing, right?
Right.
And 111.
Yes.
Right.
Okay. So then we're going to make the additions to what is there on 119, Heidi, correct? And then that will become what goes on 111, 119, and 223.
Correct.
Okay. Moving along to the next page, 120, outdoor recreation and transportation. What we had said earlier was 2 trustees and 3 citizens, at least one of which is a resident.
One point I want to make on there is anybody that's appointed to this is going to get approved by the board. So if the board at that time has an issue with it, I mean, like, it's not like these people are getting appointed and just put in there. Just to throw that out there. I mean, if we don't trust future boards, I get that. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know who's going to replace us. But I just want to mention that check is built in there.
Okay.
Okay, so we've got 2 trustees and 3 citizens, of which one is a resident. That'll be how we revise outdoor rec and transportation. Any discussion or commentary on Village Hall Task Force? Now, based on applications coming through, Julie, as recently as today, if you had a chance to see them, it would seem we're going to have enough interested parties to fill that in 7 slots.
Yeah, I believe we will. You know, today reflects the people that got us the applications that met qualifications as of last week. But this week I've received several. So when we get to that point, you know, I don't know if we want to hold off till we can review all of them at once, but we definitely have enough interest in this committee and we're going to be able to have a full committee.
Right. And just for clarification's sake, for those who weren't with us, the reason we had said that is Julie and I developed these initial drafts, the reason we had said 7 for this was so that there would be enough opportunity if volunteers with particular expertise in the areas that are going to be needed stepped forward, you know, to be committed to the full process of the task force. Denise?
Does the Village Hall Committee really need the Public Works Supervisor? I find that a huge waste of their time.
I guess I would say he's the one who knows the building. He knows the nuances of the building. He's the one who knows about the boiler, the electrical, the problems, whether the elevator works. He's the one who knows the building. He's the only one who knows the building.
Who is the public works supervisor that we're referring to?
Eric,
And he
You
was,
just call him per meeting and request him at the appropriate meetings then. I mean, he's a village employee, so he will show up. He or she.
so when he started with us until sometime this year, I believe, he was at the water treatment plant, right?
he was there prior to starting as in parks this summer, yes.
So that's the only thing I would say, Julie, is I get in theory that person is the one who knows the building, but I'm not so sure that considering the years of issues there, that one season, while it was not being used like it used to, has been enough to, make him an expert on it. I'm not saying that he's not, but I just,
Yeah, I
to-
think
so-
whatever you guys want to do with it, Eric would probably be happy, if he could be
I
getting
think
more
Nate
work
makes
done
a
in the
good
field.
point that, if the committee deems it necessary for him to be there, we can certainly invite him or schedule him to be there.
Yeah, I just think this is a committee that's looking forward to how do we address all the issues. We've basically talked about all the issues. They're gonna go in the weeds. They're gonna try to hire or recommend hiring different people that the board will have to approve to come up with plans, prices, estimates, the best way to do things. I think we pretty much know that it needs a massive overhaul on HVAC and everything and bathrooms or whatever. So yeah, he can come to a meeting, maybe the first meeting, and give the rundown. But after that, I really see that his time could be spent better someplace else.
Yeah, I would support removing the public works supervisor from the description. Any other changes or commentary? Okay,
On that same page, I do, Rob. And number 9, right below that, NIMS training, and I brought this up to Julie a while ago, and we need to get our board certified. And we need to have a bunch of people take a class together. It's supposed to be done within the first year of being elected.
I did it.
I'm just-
We were under Heidi was gonna let everyone know who needed to do it. So,
And I believe she did do that,
okay, so
but nobody took the class.
I completed that class, did I not, Heidi?
So I guess when I sent out the email with all of the information, I asked that certificates of completion be forwarded to me, and I haven't gotten any from any board members.
What's the one you got from me that I finished?
I don't have any from you.
I don't recall any class that was required to be taken. If there is a required
Okay.
course to be taken, I'll certainly take it, but I've received things that were voluntary but not requirements, so. I'll just
So I
have
can
to,
Last time
resend
Heidi
these
sent
links.
this out was when Bo was here. I remember I did not take any of them, but I do know that Heidi did send that out.
Okay. So do we want to look at having do you want to look at just trying to get all? Do you want to forward the dates, Heidi? And do we want to Denise's point, do we want to move forward with just post-election setting up? the
So it's an
training?
individual online course. You can click on the link. I'll give you the study guide that you can have right there with you that has all of the answers for the test. You just take it when you have time.
Heidi?
Yep.
When I took it, it was in person. It was at the fire station. Do they not do that anymore? Because it
No.
is just really,
Yeah. I haven't gotten any notice of any in-person class on this.
okay. Could I ask you to just follow up with Chris Heck to see if he's aware of anything different? It's
Sure.
just, I mean, I'm a nerd, so I found it fascinating when I was in there in person and talking back and forth and whatever, but yeah, to do it online, it just probably seems so dry.
I'll check with him.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so then Heidi, you're gonna send out the information again?
Sure.
Okay,
So to confirm, this is something that we're required to take?
Yes, your bylaws say that you will all take the NIMS training. Because it's in your bylaws, you're required to do it.
so my,
And-
go,
I was
sorry.
gonna say, and I will say this, once we get an adopted, updated emergency management plan and an emergency protocols plan, you're gonna see in there that they do recommend, there's certain federal best management practices.
Yeah.
And they talk about the chain of command in case there's a big disaster. Your board, you want your board and all your department heads to be trained in NIMS training. So in the event of a disaster, they're all ready to go. They all know what to do. So that's what that training is supposed to teach you.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else, Denise? We've gone through the red notations.
Nope.
Anyone else? Okay, so then are we, Julie, then we are at a point where we can go back to,
Well, what we'd want to do is take a motion and second on resolution 501
okay.
with those changes we just noted.
Mhm.
And then we're gonna have to go back to item F, which is resolution 499, and have a motion to take that off the table.
Okay.
So we can
let's-
just amend that.
Okay, so I will motion that we approve resolution number 501, the Board of Trustees bylaws with the changes as noted this evening.
Second,
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. I will motion that we return to resolution 8F that was tabled. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. So we are back on resolution 8F on the agenda, resolution number 499, the creation of the Emergency Management and Hazard Mitigation Planning Task Force. And Julie, you're looking for a motion to approve as the changes as noted.
Yes, looking for motion to approve incorporating the changes mentioned for the bylaws.
Okay. I will make that motion.
second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Discussion and action items, 9A, the development agreement for Al Goki and Luna View at 2399 Maple Drive. This starts on page 128 of our packet. Do we have any discussion or questions for Julie or the plan chair? Do we have a motion to approve?
I'll make that motion, Rob.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second,
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
Aye. Two opposed, motion carries by majority. Item 9B, the Plan Commission recommendation for Ava Hope Court and the fourplex. This begins on, with a staff report on page 180 of our packet. Do we have any discussion or comments or questions on this topic?
Getting to 180 here.
Okay, so at the October Plan Commission meeting, the Plan Commission discussed the fourplex temporarily stored on village property. They felt the building had been located on village-owned land long enough, and since there had been no progress made to obtain a variance and permit, the matter be referred to the board. The board informed Paula after last month's meeting that she has 30 days to move all structures and items that belong to her off of the village-owned parcels that are off of, to move them off of the village land, and that motion carried unanimously. As the staff write-up says, subsequently, Paula Anschutz visited with staff and explained that due to a lawsuit that prevented her access to the property, she was not able to pursue the variance and request additional time. Their staff is working with Anschutz on her options for a variance. And if a variance is still needed, the variance process could take 3 months. My only comment on this is, personally, I feel that the letter Paula sent into the village explaining her current situation was quite polite and appreciated. My understanding is, however, throughout this process, staff reached out to her several times trying to make headway on getting some answer regarding the variant situation, which was not forthcoming to my understanding until we received that very nice letter that we did receive from Paula. So that would be my question is, how long
Right.
of a process are we looking at here, or potentially how long of a process are we looking at to determine whether a variance is still needed? And if the answer to that is it might be months, and then months from now, it's determined, oh, yes, we need one. From that point forward, the process of actually getting the variance takes several more months. Are we looking at the possibility that May passes into June and nothing's changed?
So I can comment on that. Oh, I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say, she does need a variance, Rob. It's not if there's a question. She does need to apply for the variance and fill out the paperwork.
And then, yeah, that's fine, but apparently there's options that need to be considered. And these were options that staff was trying to discuss leading up to the letter that we finally received without being able to get any return contact. So that's my question is, if there's options, I get the point that a variance is needed. Okay, or your position that there is, Denise. But if there's options, then how long is this going to take?
Well, I guess
That's where
Julie
I'm-
can answer that.
That's where I'm asking Julie to come in and
Sure. When this project started last year, Paula was told she needed a variance, and she's been proceeding that way, knowing that she's going to need a variance. When her and I met, maybe about 2 weeks ago, I told her I would look into it, and she does have options. If she would turn the building, and turn the parking lot, she would be able to, she wouldn't need a variance. So now I'm just waiting, Paula's waiting to find out what happens with this meeting, I think, but, she's gonna get back to me and let me know what her decision is. Will she proceed with turning the building, or will she proceed with applying for the variance? If she applies for the variance, it does take time. You know, we have to do a legal notice, which takes a couple weeks. We have to get the meeting scheduled. I'll be honest with you, the hardest part, the most time consuming part with the variance is trying to get that board together. It takes a while to get those meetings scheduled. That's why we try to tell people you got to apply right away, because sometimes it takes 3 months, you know, to get in front of them. But right now we're just waiting to see, you know, will Paula decide she's going to rotate the building, or will she apply for the variance? So that's
So
all I
do
can really
you-
tell you. Go
Do
ahead.
you think then that the village, oh, I'm sorry, Chad. I'll let
Uh,
Chad go.
Well, go ahead, Denise. Ask your question.
As the administrator, is your opinion then that this would be premature for the board to make a decision without knowing what Paula's options are, and if she chooses to do that and not go the variance?
You know, I think you should just give her a time, and Paula's gonna have to apply for the variance within that time period or make a decision. You know, to keep coming back, I think takes a lot of time. I think Paula has said she couldn't do stuff last spring because of you know, the court order that was on there, and then she got busy. Now's the season where she can actually apply for the stuff and make the arrangements. So, you know, she's on the call. She could chime in too if you want to hear from her. But I think we just need to give her a timeline. She's going to have to either apply for the permits and get the contractors lined up in that time frame, or get the variance. But at least she has a drop dead deadline, you know, of when she has to get stuff done. I think that's really what we need here.
Julie, as far as
Ed?
applying for the variance, how long of a process is that? How big of a form? Something, you know, something that can be done in the next couple of weeks, next month?
Yeah, so let's say she applied tomorrow. You know, we would schedule it for a public hearing. That has to go in the paper 2 times. So
I get that, but how long of an application process is it? It's pretty simple, huh?
Yeah. You
Okay.
fill out the form.
Well, why don't we
May
give
I
her a month
speak?
why don't we give her a month? Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Hold on one second. Mary has a question, and then we'll let Mary raise her question, Paula, and then you can have the floor. Mary?
I was just gonna say, why don't we talk about Paula as if she's here with us and address her directly and ask her questions directly and give her information directly. I think that's the more polite thing to do. So,
Thank you, Mary. One thing that came to light talking to Julie, who was very helpful and informative, was that she does not think that I have grounds for a variance, which was news to me. So I don't know if she's willing to speak on that, but she went through what I need to prove. And yes, the application is short, but I have to prove hardship. And that cannot be financial. And she does not think I have the grounds to do that. So one of her suggestions was turning the building, which does mean going back to planning, and it does mean redoing the site plan, which is fine. It will take some time. But I will say that I do not think aesthetically anyone is going to like how that looks. If that's what has to be done, it has to be done. But it does mean that the porches would be on the side, and that the long part of the building would run the length of the road. And I just think aesthetically that people would have something to say about that. Obviously, if that's what I need to do, that might be my only option and to get this down for housing. But I don't know. I mean, that is the hardest part, is that technically this building is not supposed to go here because there is a deed restriction that it was not disclosed to me. It was never brought up until Julie brought it up. So there are some things to weigh, but it's things that I did not realize when we were making these decisions. Sorry, Chad.
Chad?
Besides, I get the aesthetic, but hold the aesthetic aside. I mean, I know that's important, but is it much harder for your project to turn the building?
Well, I
Is
actually,
it-
sorry, that was the first I had like, I haven't actually sketched it out to make sure I can meet the setbacks. It seems like Julie is confident, but I have never looked like that. I didn't even consider that just because it would make it an interesting layout, but it sounds like Julie's confident that it could be done. The thing is, the lot, I mean, I'll have to sketch it all out and make sure and see what the setbacks are. I know the side setbacks are a lot less than from the road or from the back property line, but the building is 60 feet long. So, and it's just not a very big lot.
Denise?
So if Julie is informing you that it's going to be difficult to prove a hardship, I don't know if I agree with that, because the village sold you this lot. We wanted it there, and now that's the hardship. We entered into an agreement, the village and you, because we thought this was a good idea. I can't remember if we had an administrator at the time or part of the time or none of the time that this was all happening. And to me, that's the hardship. I don't know what deed restrictions Julie's talking about that you said that you were unaware of.
So if I can just comment on this, so
But-
Paula,
Hold on one second. I've waited for a couple people here, Julie. Just one second. Denise, what I think you're framing is, what I'm hearing you frame is, in your opinion, there would be a verifiable approach to going through the legal process to get the variance, okay? What I believe I'm hearing from Julie is, it's difficult. My understanding is it's a significantly challenging legal process to attain one of these, which Julie, you can weigh in on that if that's part of, where the difficulty of attaining that, if that's part of where you're coming from. I'm personally confident that everyone would be happy to see that building on Paula's property, and that, if that building is turned, set up without a variance and proceeds forward, the fact that it's there serving housing needs, I don't recall anywhere throughout the approval process and discussion stages of this, anyone on the board having peculiar or particular sentiments on how that building had to be set on the property. So it would seem to me that going ahead and positioning the building as it would need to be to not even go the variance route would be a very good option, considering the fact that months of that could be involved and then it just isn't granted. And then there's been no planning or procedures or readiness once spring comes to set it down. Denise?
I think Plan Commission and this particular Plan Commission chair would have a real problem with the site plan if that building is turned.
Great. If
A real
everyone,
problem with it, or would it not? Would there be some sort of based on ordinance and code, would it be violating something?
Aesthetically,
Okay.
it would look ridiculous.
So that would fall under the grounds of architectural control.
Yep.
Well, and also I'm pretty sure in the code, you're not allowed to have a certain amount of length of a building without a depth. Isn't there something in the, like, it is 160-foot south?
Yep, can't be over 50 feet unless you break it up. Which you can use landscaping to do that with. But in my opinion, this would be the last thing that I would want to see is that building turned and having the 60 feet butt up, being parallel to the road. I don't think it would do anything for the neighborhood.
Yeah, boy.
If everyone feels this way and you're willing to grant the time, I have some rough copies of what I explained as my hardship. And I'm willing to work with Julie and get this submitted so that we know and can get a public hearing set. I would prefer.
Oops, sorry, Paul.
Chad was going. Chad was first. Yeah.
Okay, so getting back to the setbacks, it's because the building, it doesn't meet front and rear, or just obviously just one or the other. How far off is it?
You know what, I'd have to look at the
Paula
file.
probably knows.
Go ahead.
Did you know, Paula?
Well, there was a little discrepancy because the interim administrator had something wrong. The rear setback is 30 feet, but she told me I had to adhere to the R1 code as well because it's neighboring. So that changed it to 40 feet. So then I was very much in that. So I thought it was only 10 feet that I was in the setback. There are 2 8-foot decks, one on each side. I would really like to keep those because I think it is nice to have a deck for people to use, and aesthetically it looks nice, and it is the access into the building, but that could be cut down, not ideal. I believe I'm 10 feet off. It could be into the front or the back. Julie said because the front setback for safety, it would be better to infringe on the rear setback. And that's just building position.
Rob, can I make some comments now on this one? So when Paul and I talked, I had explained to her, she does have some valid points for a variance, but because there are options, I thought it'd be a real challenge for her to get that variance. What happens in this situation, there's 2 things. One, there's a deed restriction on that lot that says it can only be used for 1 and 2 family homes. We sold her a lot for a 4-plex where the lot, when the subdivision was, when we finalized the paperwork on that subdivision, we said, due to the size of this lot, it is restricted to a 1 or 2 family lot. Paula had originally looked at a different lot. Apparently we convinced her to buy this one, told her, yeah, put your 4-plex on there. The lot is too small for that use. We shouldn't have, what happened. But on this particular lot, it's compounded and causes a problem for Paula because the lot has a cul-de-sac. It curves into her property, which means the front of the building kind of gets chopped off. It doesn't meet the setback. And it's about 15 feet of that front corner. Like Paula said, Amy had told her she needed a 40-foot setback from the rear. She doesn't butt up to an R1 zone. There's actually a lot in between, which means she doesn't need that extra setback. She only needs to be 30. So she does pick up a little area there, but then you have these decks, which are a problem. So long story short, I really don't think we should be discussing, all the details of that case, but bottom line is Paula needs to decide, am I going for a variance or not? And we have to decide how much time we're going to give her.
End of the year.
End of the year for a decision on whether Paul is going for a variance. Is that what you're saying, Denise?
Applies for a permit or goes or files for a variance. One of the 2, either one.
Why would?
I can tell you right now that I would like to apply for the variance, and if you give me the extension, that's my intent, is to get that done.
So
Do you-
you feel,
so-
Paula, that you need 6 weeks to prepare that?
Well, I will get it done as soon as I can. I think that's a very reasonable timeline and I'd be happy to adhere to that.
Okay, but do you need 6 weeks? Is it something you could have done by the end of November? Is it something you could have done by December 15th? Or do you need the 6 weeks?
In order to, I would like the 6 weeks. I think I can get it done beforehand, but if Denise feels like that's an okay timeline, I
I'm good
would
with
like,
that timeline.
Did it,
My only concern with that is if we say December 15th, then that's before the holidays, that's before New Year's, that's before everything that's going to be making the bowl busier again. And
December
remove.
is
the
fine.
poten-
That's fine.
So I would say December 15th.
That would be fine. Don, what, you've had, your
Don?
hand.
yeah, thanks. So on occasion, we don't notice when people make a comment. I noticed Mary Kay made a comment. She typed a comment to everybody. I don't know if anybody saw it or read it. It might be worthy of noticing and maybe discussion. Maybe not, but I didn't know, it hasn't been brought up and I just read it. And then the other thing is, what are we actually voting on here? I mean, when we came into this, there was something that said, she needed, Paula, we were asking Paula to move her building off in 30 days, which doesn't seem real reasonable. What are we actually proposing and voting on right now?
So
It
what
appears
happens?
it appears what's under consideration that ultimately wasn't disagreed with was that by December 15th, Paula would either file for her permit or her variance with staff and Julie. Nate has
Me?
his hand
Sure,
raised.
okay.
So I think that we need to look at what our desired outcome is. And what I believe our desired outcome is to get this attainable housing here and to get that house off the property. And I think that I would like to see us have a more long-term vision or not, solution on this and say, we need Paula to have that off of our property by April 1st of 2023. However she gets that accomplished, she gets it accomplished. I know that's a long ways away, but I think if we put that hard deadline here, I think that gives Paula enough room to do what she's gonna do. She can figure out what she needs to figure out. And we've got that hard deadline. That's what I would advocate for instead of saying we need this decision on this and that by December 15th or January 1st. Whatever happens, we need it off the property by April 1st.
I agree with Nate. So if we were to move forward with a motion like that, my question for you, Julie, is if we move forward with a motion as Nate suggested, and it gets voted by majority or unanimously, it gets voted in, then what would be different about this action this evening than the one that was taken last month? In other words, at the March board meeting, could some sort of new hardship be presented and another, another change to what the board has voted on takes place?
Okay, so
May
what
I-
was,
I'd
May
like to
I-
hear Julie answer my question and then we'll let you speak, Paula, and then Chad.
so what was voted on at the plan commission meeting was that she had to have it off in, I believe it was 30 days. And that's why it came to the board to recommend to the board that the board give her a 30-day deadline to get it off the property. So what's different is with Nate's motion would be that instead of having until 30 days from today, she'd actually have from till April 1st. She would have to make up her mind pretty quick here. Am I going for the variance or not? And then she'd have to follow up with the paperwork make the arrangements with contractors. It kind of forces her to get going. By saying April 1st instead of the 30 days, it does give her time to do, to line people up, to make sure that if she wants the variance, she can do it, versus, to be honest with you, in 30 days, she's probably just gonna have to haul it off.
Okay, Chad?
Well, I know you want to talk, but let me interject. Even within 30 days, she probably couldn't get somebody to haul it off.
Right.
Things don't move that quick in this world.
Right.
And if she's applying for a variance, let's just play this out. And it is a hardship. I agree. She has a good case, but a lot of it's out of our hands. So say they deny it. And then we come back and she says, okay, I'm going to turn the building. And then Denise says, no. What are we going to allow her to do? Right? Let's just figure this out now, because this April 1st doesn't make any sense if the variance doesn't get approved until May 1st, because it takes too long for them to meet. There's a lot that isn't in her control and a lot that isn't going to turn out to be in our control. We could say, turn the building, even if it looks ugly, but we've just heard from our planning chair, that's going to be a hard sell on them. So this is a no-win situation right now for Paula. And I don't think any of us at our heart want her to be in a no-win situation. I know I don't.
Which sounds like exactly what happened this spring when you were requiring her to move stuff and she was like entering a busy season and there's no time to do it and no like vendors have time to do it for her. So
And basically what you just said, Chad, underscores why my point that by December 15th,
Denise has had her hand up for a while.
okay, Denise has had her hand up for a while. I'm the chair of the committee. I've been waiting patiently for people to speak,
All right.
and I'm not gonna have you talk over me when I'm ready to speak, and Denise will be next. Okay,
All right,
So-
guys, come on now.
what my point for saying December 15th to either file the permit or go for the variance would be the quickest way to help trying to solve this in terms of knowing at least by then what Paula was going for. If we say anything, if we don't do that first step, whatever time we put on it, whether it's April 1st, May 1st, June 1st, if we don't put that first step on it of by this date, we need to know which direction you're heading. We're asking for it to be prolonged. Denise?
Is this going, in reference to what Don said about Mary Kay's chat comment, is this going to Zoning Board of Appeals?
If she decides to apply for the variance, yes.
Okay, well then Mary Kay's comment is incorrect.
Well, with the zoning board of appeals, they do have to follow the state guidelines. They do have, and our
Right.
board is really good that way. They do make sure people meet all the state requirements.
Okay,
Of course, if somebody's not happy with that, then it would get appealed to circuit court.
okay, all right. And then the other thing is, I think you kind of had it backwards when you talked, Julie. Most of us thought we offered Paula a different lot, okay, across the street. That's not the one she ended up buying. I was one of those people that was not told that this was a different lot when it came to a vote. I think there were 3 of us that were unaware. We were not told and didn't check the PIN number to know. So so if push comes to shove, and if there are challenges, there is that option to address also on going back to the original lot,
Does it
which
fit in
is
that lot?
larger. What, Chad?
Does it fit in that lot?
It's larger. It's a little different configuration.
Let's figure out that it fits, because it'd be nice to know that.
Also, may I speak to this?
Yes, please.
Really, if it's gonna move, I mean, because I ended up in litigation and it was going to be longer, the mover did remove everything to move it, the wheels, the truck. He will charge me to put that back on. It will be a minimum of $5,000 to cross a ditch. He can't just drive over that. He has to lay down steel plates and mats. So the lot it's currently sitting on the corner is bigger. It's 0.34 acres. That is the one that I offered to switch to. Even, I mean, I know Vivian said trade lots. Trade lots is kind of a dumbed down term of what happened, but it can't just go on any lot. I mean, that would be a very large expense. The lot that it is currently on is slightly larger, and I can look at those setbacks, and I do believe it was close. So that would be an option. It also doesn't curve on the cul-de-sac the same way, but crossing the street is going to be a tough sell. But I do appreciate what you said, Chad, because I would like to apply for the variance and not knowing, I understand you guys wanting a deadline in spring to get this done and get it off the lot so that you can do what you need to with that village property. But I will say, not knowing that timeline, it's hard enough to get on Hawker's schedule or on Devote's schedule, let alone saying, I literally have no idea when I could start excavating or doing this. So I would appreciate having a deadline to apply for the variance, and then we'll see when I get that about setting a different one.
Nate?
So Paul, I hear you saying that you would prefer to have the 30 days to apply for the variance and then not have, you do not like that April 1st deadline. That's.
I
not-
don't think it's reasonable to put the deadline on until I have the variance. Because at this point, I mean, if I don't get a variance, maybe if you're willing to switch lots, that's an option. Otherwise, my only option is to sell this to recoup my costs and figure out something to do with the building. The building can't move very far because of power lines and a lot of organizing. So I would appreciate, if you need to set a deadline, I understand that, but I would appreciate knowing if I'm able to put it on this lot or not.
What do you
first.
think a reasonable deadline would be?
I won't know that until I get the variance.
Okay.
Because like Chad said, if I don't get the variance until March 31st, that's then my setting even if I set a date for June 1st, it all depends on when the variance comes through.
And that would be done in partnership with Julie and staff, Paula?
Well, if she's willing to help me with it, yes.
Denise?
One thing that we talked about last month at Plan Commission was amending something in the zoning code that talks about if the village makes improvements to a property, it shouldn't count against the open space. And even though this cul-de-sac is there that encroaches 15 feet of a corner of it, would that apply, Julie?
No, it would have to be where you own a piece of property. We come in and do something after that.
Okay,
Doesn't hurt you.
okay. I'll make a motion. We have a deadline to apply for a permit or a variance by December 15th.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Question here, what happens if so if there's a deadline, what happens if the deadline's not met? That would seem to be an important part of the motion.
I think December 15th probably falls before.
Yeah,
our
we deal with it at
December-
the December 20th board meeting.
Yes,
Can I just explain how the code would work on that? If she didn't, we would just deny it. And at that point, she would be denied a permit and she would have to get it off. If she didn't, we could start imposing citations. We don't want to go there, but I do believe Paula's going to apply. She said she would. So I think we just have to wait and see.
So we had a motion and a second to file a permit or apply for variance by December 15th. All in favor, say aye.
aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Paula.
Thank you.
Item number 9C, Northwoods Drive, and a discussion on accepting the bid that is represented on page 182 of the packet. Julie, any final thoughts you want to convey on that?
Just real quick, the project went out for bids. This was the lowest bidder. And also that the engineering firm we work with felt that it was a good company. They've done work with us before. They felt, I know Dan was pretty happy they came in low because he has a relationship with them and likes the work they do.
I will motion that we accept the Northwoods Drive bid as detailed in the packet.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Item 9D, the draft code amendment for park hours of operation and quiet hours. Any
So
discussion?
I make a motion to approve as presented.
Second? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
just so you know, that means it's now gonna go to an ordinance format at the next meeting. This was a
Right.
draft, so.
Right. Item number 9E, draft code amendment, direct seller regulations, dealt with page 215 of the packet. This was revised to remove the permanent merchant requirement for festivals, et cetera. Do we have any discussion or commentary on the revision to direct seller regulations? I will motion that we approve the draft code amendment for the direct seller regulations as presented.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item 9F, amend the committee bylaws adopted October 18th, 2022. Any discussion on what was approved at the board meeting? A motion that we approve the amended committee bylaws that were adopted on October 18th, 2022
And amended tonight.
and amended tonight.
Amended tonight. I'll make that motion, Rob.
Okay, I'll second it. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item 9G, options for special assessments of village properties. Dealt with on page 230 of the packet. We've got the staff memorandum. Do we have any discussion or questions?
Just disappointed to see this, but understand it. One thing that I just wanted to notate for staff moving forward in the future. Was the medical clinic approved while you were here, Julie, or did that happen before?
Before I was here.
Okay, so I kind of, and I can't remember if anybody else joined in with me on Plan Commission, round and round on them continuing the sidewalk that they're going to put in on the highway around the corner and down Canterbury. And they fought and fought and fought, and I guess we finally gave in. But they did say that if the village was interested in doing that in the future, that they would be very amenable to special assessments. And so I don't know if Dan Klansky is aware of that, if you were aware of that, but that was something that we were thought would be a big improvement. And so therefore this, how this would apply to that project or whatever, I just want you to keep in the back of your head. And when Dan is thinking about doing different things, or maybe this specifically could be a project on its own when the clinic is done, maybe we could start moving forward on that.
So just a note real quick on that. Dan has talked to them because if they put the sidewalk along 57, it'd go into a ditch, but Dan did talk to them as an alternative, and he said, hey, you know, would you ever consider maybe paying for a portion of the sidewalk on the other side of the road to get people to your clinic? And then still continue with the sidewalks where they could put them on the property, So he is aware of it, and he's had some conversations with them to put sidewalks where they can, and where they can't, would they be willing to help the village in other areas? Were some of the conversations he's had with them.
I recall that, Denise, though, I think they actually said that they wanted it to be a special assessment because
Yes.
of how that was structured for their financial purposes,
Right,
that they were not absolutely not opposed to a sidewalk going there, and it would be beneficial for their rehab, I believe is what they said, to get people outside.
right. Yeah, that they could budget for it better instead of it being incorporated into this project. But back to what Julie said, I'm a little bit confused. The Plan Commission approved a sidewalk on their side of the property on 57, I thought.
I believe they did. It's something that would have to go back to the committee. What happens, because they've had conversations, when you actually go out there and if you follow the sidewalk, all at once it drops down, you drop down to like a 15-foot hole or 10-foot hole if they put the sidewalk in. So there's the concerns. Should we really, on paper, it looked really good, but in the field, the sidewalk goes to a pit.
Well,
So
can't the pit be filled in?
no, you'd have to get the neighbor to fill their property in. So, but it is something we know we have to bring back. It's just something he's discussed with them and said, hey, what are some options here? And like I said, it has to come back to the Plan Commission. They're just
Okay.
not, it's not time yet.
Okay,
Okay, so Julie, just so I understand, for formality's sake, we segued away from Stony Ridge development and the retention pond, which was the basis for the memorandum in the packet. Correct?
Yeah, so we were talking about Stony Ridge, and at that time, last month, the board said, hey, can you guys research special assessments and how they can be done? They can be done, but they can only be done on something that's forthcoming, not something that already happened, is the bottom line.
So then does that mean the fact that we approved the use of TIP funds to complete the retention pond at Stony Ridge, is that still going to happen in that manner?
Yes, we're actually they're working on the pond,
I
so.
just want to make
it's
sure,
not-
because the way the memorandum reads is, you know, we're dealing specifically with that, or it could be read that way. Okay. So at this point then, do we need to motion this back?
No, there's no motion. This was just an FYI. This was just something the board had requested information on.
Okay. Any further questions or discussion on this? Hearing none, I'll move us along to 9H, a review of the financial statements and the approval of the monthly bills. Does anyone have any questions for Tasha?
I apologize to the rest of my board members for taking up your time. I was unable to talk to Tasha today, so I have quite a few questions.
Okay, shoot.
Okay, page 234. And I know I've seen this on there before. How often do you guys have staff luncheons?
Maybe quarterly, if that often, most of the,
Okay.
like twice a year.
Okay,
Remember that they're budgeted and they can use it, and if we have if they're going over budget, we'll talk about it. I think we all agreed about that, right?
This was I believe this was a benefits meeting, so we could go over all of the benefits.
sure. Right below that, engineering conference Klansky, $1,000.
Is the
What-
Public Works Conference, somewhat targeted towards engineering of stormwater and, falls right within his wheelhouse.
Okay. Flower pot recognition, was that just gift cards to all the,
That was their lunch.
okay, oh, they actually had a lunch, okay.
Mhm.
Can I jump in while you're looking, Denise?
Yes,
Swim raft repair, $2,835. Is that the what was discussed previously about we've just got to do stuff to make sure it's secure and move on? Or was
Can you
that
tell me what
something?
page you're on? So I know what
I'm on
vendor. we're
page-
talking about?
Page 234,
Okay,
Death Store Marine,
Yes.
line item 20443, swim raft repair,
Right.
2835. Is that the part that, as Dan?
that was
Clancy
their
was-
attempts to shore it up and strengthen the hold out there.
Okay.
Heavier chain, which still ended up breaking. In my
Okay.
opinion, again, this is something that
Okay,
needs to
so
just be addressed.
that's what we spent to get to the point where the report came to us that we weren't even able to secure it the way we wanted to. Okay,
Yep.
thank you, Tasha.
Okay, I'm confused in that conversation. So this was the fix, so we are gonna have a swim raft next year?
I am not saying whether we are or aren't having a swim raft.
Oh, this is just a late
This was an
coming
attempt
bill?
to, this was heavier chain. Reinforcement on the raft to try and keep it out there in the storm so that it wouldn't wash ashore, that it wouldn't break free. It still broke free and it still caused a problem.
Okay, we're just getting a really late bill then from him because this happened.
Yeah, that's pretty
Okay.
typical.
All right, got it.
Yep.
Page 238, chainsaw protective clothing, $923. Is this for all of the crew?
Yeah, it's shared clothing.
Okay. That's it.
Anyone else?
There's nothing.
I will motion that we approve the monthly bills in the amount of $349,137.89 as presented.
Second,
Whoa, wait, sorry. 484, 205, 24. You want to pull the bill number from the appropriations report, not the end of the payment approval report.
Okay.
Okay, so why don't you quote the number for me again, Tasha, please?
Yeah, sorry, that number is on page 233. It's $484,205.24.
Okay, I will motion that we approve the monthly bills as detailed by Tasha.
I still second it.
All in favor, say aye.
I,
Aye.
Hey,
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you,
You're gonna get me
Tasha.
hung up with the auditors, geez.
Okay, moving on to item number 10 this evening, staff reports. Starting with administrators report, Julie.
I'll go real quick. So started working on the broadband infrastructure project. As you know, when we disbanded the committee, some of that was given to staff. And then I have to report back to the Parks Committee, but basically the first step of that was to determine what our needs are. So we're doing a speed test. Hopefully you've all received a postcard to that effect already, or it'll go up this weekend. From there, we'll know, where are we underserved, how bad we're underserved, what our speeds are, etc. That the next step after that would be to request some information from vendors. Just
Julie?
so I know that, yeah.
I keep an eye out for Friday. The FCC is releasing its first nationwide broadband map that's actually going to be useful. I would definitely take a look and see what Sister Bay looks like on there.
Definitely, yeah, we tried getting maps already and we haven't, so
This is the first time this has ever been released.
yeah, so and I've been working really close with Jessica at the county as well, so she's been helping with some of that. But and then SBAA put it in their newsletter so we could reach more businesses to make sure we got more people connected on that to get that speed test. Side note, the property that we sold to the housing partnership, we got the check on, we've closed on that. We've now got $78,000. It was 80 and then we had to pay legal fees, but we got 78,000 that we were able to receipt on that. Park improvements, just working on a grant for Waterfront Park, and then trails, just been working on some stuff. The Outdoor Rec and Transportation Committee has made some recommendations on trails. Dan and I've been doing some work on them so that we can present the information and the proposal to the Parks Committee at the next meeting. That's it. That's the big stuff.
Denise?
Julie, what's an RFI?
Request for information.
Information.
Yep, there's RFIs, request for information, there's RFQs, request for qualifications, and there's RFPs, which are the request for proposals. This is just one where we get information from them, which helps us narrow down and see, are they even gonna give us what we want? Should we even pursue working with them or getting more information from them?
Okay.
Any other questions on Julie's report?
No.
Moving on to the utilities operations report. Do we have any questions from anyone?
No.
I've got two questions on page 242 of the report. A hauler list, the last item on the page. Halsam is working on a hauler list to get a general idea of where the hauler's bringing waste from and the roads they are using to haul the waste. After the list is completed, she will work on a hauling route for the haulers to use in the future. Am I correct to say that this is describing the fact that we have some issues going on with where waste haulers are driving in the village and we need to route them in a better method? Or if that's not what it's saying, what is it saying?
That's what it is saying for the most part, you know, try and get them off some of our village streets. We know it's a direct route for them to go down Scandia, for example. But we have people walking on there. We have people complaining. If we can get them out on taking the route that goes down the county highway and coming in that direction, it would be better. But we have to see where they're coming from before we even start working on proposals for different routes.
Excellent, thank you. My other question would be on the next page, page 243, broken garage heater. One of the heaters in the garage at the wastewater treatment plant has a broken heat exchanger. We feel it's best to replace both heaters at the same time for $25,400. We are reallocating unused funds to cover this purchase. Just off the top of my head, several recent meetings we've had when ideas have come up in various ways for, we've gotten a lot of answers lately about, well, there's no money in the budget for that. I'm not saying we shouldn't do this, but I guess I'm surprised that there's unused funds over 25,000 that could be reallocated when the answer several times in recent months was there wasn't funds for this, that, or something else.
Utilities is different, Rob. It's a different account.
So that's not an unused general fund. That's not
Right.
general fund money?
Right. This
Okay.
is utility treatment plant money.
Okay.
And the unused
that
funds,
explains it. Okay. I was assuming it was general funds, but it's utility specific. I got you. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Any other questions on the financial state or the staff reports? Moving on to Parks, anyone have any questions on the Parks report, page 244 of the packet?
I do.
Denise?
It's just kind of a follow-up from our walk around the other day. And when I was talking about possibly leaving the bathrooms open longer, and I know Julie, you said that you were going to talk, to Dave about that, blah, blah, blah. And if there's not a reasonable solution to this, then I wanted you to maybe talk to him about porta potties. It's the fishermen that come in. It's not the boaters. It's the fishermen. So I don't think they're going to have such an issue with the porta potty if there's bathrooms available there.
Yeah, and just to be clear, this is at the marina.
Yep.
Yeah. So Dave is going to try and return to work, I think tomorrow. So I can talk to him about it after that. So.
Okay. And then on page 245, high winds in the middle of October caused some damage and some shingles had to be replaced at the Waterfront Park building. What building are they referring to? What Waterfront Park building?
I believe he's referring to the bathroom. Or the restrooms.
Okay.
Hmm.
And then under streets, the second bullet point, Dan's waiting to get a schedule update on the blasting and installation of the clay liner for the stormwater pond. Are we abiding by our own code and televising and everything else?
Yes, we are. As a matter of fact, we had people calling on the Cherrywood project. We've got them calling on one already. We had a call today. We're making sure that the blaster gets out there and does that.
Okay,
They're aware of it.
okay,
That's part of the contract that we have with them, is that they have to follow that.
okay, thank you.
Any other questions on staff reports? Moving on to item number 11, committee appointments. Beginning with 11A, the Village Hall Planning Task Force. At this time, we've got Don Cox and I as the interested trustees. We've got one of the things that we, in public forum and in subsequent follow-up, began emphasizing was looking for committee members who might be interested in serving with expertise. Dave Schmitz from the Plan Commission has stepped forward to be a resident candidate with experience. Don Howard and Kathleen Van Gemert have also stepped forward as a resident candidate, Don, and a citizen candidate, Kathleen. Do we have any discussion on anyone there so named? Denise?
Julie, did you say that you've received more applications?
Yes, I think offhand I have 4 that came in between yesterday and today, maybe.
Okay, so I would ask that we table this until next month so we can review everything that everyone who has shown some interest.
I agree with that.
Okay,
Good call.
all right, so we will table 11A till next month. 11B, Marina Committee. We have 2 resident candidates who both qualify for the open spots. A resident obviously can serve as a citizen. So we have Vilius Vaiskauskas and Pat Duffy as resident candidates for the committee. They're both boat owners. They're both involved in the marina and concerned for the future of the marina, and both slip renters.
Correct.
I will offer up for any discussion anyone has. Denise?
So I know Pat's already been on it, correct? He continued when he got off the board, still wanted to be involved.
Correct.
So who got off? Who quit?
So what happened is when we reorganized, when the board approved their last committee and board bylaw changes, I think the first time we looked at it was September maybe, and finalized it in October. That actually changed the makeup of the Marina Committee. We also looked at where people actually live. And to be a citizen member, it says that you have to own property here. And then you either have to own a business or be an expert in the field. Not saying you have to live here, but yeah, at least you have to own property. And one of the members that's been on there a while that I think everybody has really enjoyed having him on there, has moved out. He no longer has land in the village, so he is not able to be or to stay on the committee. So with the committee changes, saying we're getting rid of alternates and instead just going with permanent members, and then with that member no longer having land here, we've got to do reappointments on that committee.
Okay, so the current committee makeup is,
We have 1 new appointment and 1 reappointment.
Yes.
Okay.
technically, Julie.
The current committee makeup is Scott Baker, right? Chad,
It must be Dwight
And
again.
Pat is a
and-
reappointment, Fuzzy,
Yeah, so Fuzzy no longer owns land here, and Dwight doesn't own land at all.
Fuzzy and Dwight are both gone.
Yes.
Exactly what I was saying. Awesome.
I'm on it.
Don's also.
Awesome.
So Chad,
Oh,
you're
I'm
saying
being-
it's good that
Denise,
Fuzzy's
this is-
gone? Because that's what I
This is
just,
what I just went through. What, we're getting weaker with these committees by making these decisions. This is exactly what I was just talking about before. And now this is what's happening, right?
do those two still have interest? What, did we tell them they could not serve anymore because of the bylaws?
Well, a couple things. So I wrote them and told them that the board has changed the membership. Do they own land, but they still like to be on the committee, things of this nature. So Pat and Corey got back to me and said, because they were alternate members, and I explained, we're getting rid of the alternate members. The board has decided they will have one resident, one citizen. Are either of you interested in being appointed to that position? Pat got back to me right away and said, yeah, I'm interested. And it took Corey quite a while. And he said, well, by now you probably talked to Pat. And I said, yeah, I said, Pat gave me his resume. I said, so, Pat has said he's interested. So that recommendation will go to the board. With Fuzzy and Dwight, we found out that they do not live here. Dwight lives in Ellison Bay. He has no, not that you have to live here, but he has no land. And then Fuzzy sold off the property he had. So based on our own,
So we lost Pat, Fuzzy, and Corey.
Oh, Pat is reapplying.
Yeah,
you
Correct.
lost Dwight, Fuzzy, and Corey.
Dwight, Fuzzy, and Corey.
Corey was an alternate, so really you lost two. You lost Dwight and Fuzzy.
I guess I don't think that it's a good policy to base this on land ownership. I mean, I don't think that owning land should give you more access than not. I mean, I think that I'd come back to saying that it should be at the discretion of the board whether these individuals serve. I think that it's a tremendous loss to lose Fuzzy on there. I mean, he is a real community member, and it doesn't matter where he lives. I think that's if that's why we did this, I really think that we need to reevaluate the bylaws that pertain to that at least.
Chad, I'm going to say it publicly and loudly. Oh, he's not even there. He won't even hear it. You're right.
So,
Yeah,
so just,
I'm,
So my question would be then, when we took initial commentary from fellow trustees on the shapes and sizes of committees, it was Chad who initially brought up the point of, we should really have 5 people on parks, properties, and streets. The significance and the wide-ranging scope of that committee really justifies having 5 people. So my question is, in addition to the comments that have been made tonight, am I hearing agreement that 5 is the right number for Marina, or is what's going to follow this somebody saying we should consider revising the bylaws for a larger committee, to the point Mary made earlier, which I would say is universal? But my question would be, if somebody who serves on the Marina Committee noted in public forum at the prior meeting when it was discussed that Parks needs 5 people, not 6 or 7, 5, why would a smaller in scope committee than Parks, Properties, and Streets need more than 5?
I don't think they need more than 5.
Okay, so then what we would be talking about doing then is tabling this until next month and giving people an opportunity to A, reapply or apply for open spots after we would have a draft in front of us as to what the makeup of the committee would be. It sounds like there's sentiment that for whatever reason, the Marina Committee should include somebody who at their coming and going has a presence in the community, but is not a resident and doesn't own land here.
He'd be.
I have
very
a
valuable-
solution. I have a I'm sorry, somebody had their hand raised, did they?
I did. I guess what I would say is we should refer to this as community members, and community does not stop at political boundaries. And yeah.
How
Well, we've
about
never
this,
said
Nate?
community members before, and we've always defined citizen to some degree, and in this case, it was defined as owning land. So that's what I'm asking, Nate. Are you proposing that for this particular committee alone, it needs to have a certain number of trustees and then a certain number of community members?
I guess what I'm saying is for all committees, I think that we need to look at it as community members, and then understanding that the village board is going to approve appointments. So if the village board has discretion on there. So it's not like these people are going to get appointed. I'm also not entirely comfortable with the term applying. I think that they should express interest. This is the first time I've ever seen resumes come through for people applying to be on this. That I don't know if you've seen that before, Denise, or if that's new to you as well.
It's new, and Julie and I talked about this, and it's a good thing. But the one thing, I don't know if we need to know their work resume. I want to know about them personally. If your work simply has nothing to do with the committee, then it's kind of a moot point. But if you refer back to the bylaws on page, you don't have to go there because I'm going to read it out loud. On page 120, where it talks about the plan commission. And there are 4 trustees and 3 residents. And if available, 1 ex officio non-voting resident or citizen member with recognized experience and qualifications related to planning and development, the chair, blah, blah, blah. I'm wondering if we don't take some of those words, or if you want to go Nate's way and just talk about community members. Now, Plan Commission is statutory. You have to be a resident. But people that have recognized experience, and we can give that a nod.
So
If they're
create an
not a
ex
resident.
officio, similar to Plan Commission, have an ex officio member of the
No.
committee.
You
No.
need him voting.
You need them to be a voting member.
Voting.
This would make it an 8-member Plan Commission, an 8-member board. But I was just remembering that there was some different wording there for that 8th member if we ever wanted to appoint it. But somebody who has expertise, or people who have been on a committee for a really long time, that's valuable to
Yeah,
us.
but that's the same, that same position you just stated was brought up for months and months and actually kept Sharon Dorshing on Parks Committee for almost a full year after she didn't live in Sister Bay anymore. And part of the revision of the committee descriptions brought forth in that particular instance, that particular instance, there was deemed by everyone at the time no validity to rewriting the bylaws to allow somebody who didn't live here anymore, because of their longstanding setting on the committee and their experience, be kept around.
Well, I didn't
So-
think about it
so-
before. I'm thinking about it now.
I think the community ties is what it comes down to, and that could be long serving on there or just other other things that are tying people to the community.
So then my question for everyone would be this. We never have a meeting, as funny as Don might find it, we never have a meeting where somebody doesn't mention how difficult it is to get volunteers to help out at this, how difficult it is to get somebody to want to be interested on joining a committee, how difficult it is to get people to want to become involved. And if we're not, if we're not creating opportunities for interested residents to participate when we happen to do get them, and we're setting up committees to exclude potentially residents in favor of somebody from the community at large. Somebody from the community at large is not going to be able to come in and serve on a village committee and then run for village board. There's, part of the reason of why these resident requirements have always been in there has been, for lack of a better term, to develop a bench that would hopefully lead to residents getting their feet wet in involvement in the village, and then hopefully being interested in moving forward to running for the board, which is a process virtually, the vast majority of all board members in the 17 years I've lived here have followed. So I'm all for figuring out how to rewrite a draft of the bylaws for the Marina Committee to make everyone with their own sentiments about who should be on the Marina Committee to be on the Marina Committee. I'm totally open to that. I think we're going way off track by saying we need to reassess a conversion to forget about residents, community members, in part or in total. So if we want to, that's my opinion. I don't think, I don't think you increase getting residents who want to be involved in this community to actually serve and run for elections if you're going to deny them the opportunity to be on a committee because somebody who is from the community at large wants to be on. Don?
I respectfully disagree with that assessment that people are joining committees so that one day it becomes a bench for running for you. When you're back from your walk, you can come back and listen to my comments.
I've been listening the whole time, Don.
Okay, so my comment is a lot of people want to participate in committees and not run for board, because running for the board and participating in a lot more things than one committee is a commitment. And not a lot of people that are residents want to provide that amount of time. A lot of people might want to be on one committee. A lot of community members might be on one committee, and a lot of citizens might be on one committee. Just because we open up something like the Marina Committee or other committees to community members, however that's defined, doesn't get in the way of a resident that wants to be participating in that committee. The issue is we don't have enough residents that want to participate in all the committees. And a lot of times what we're doing is trying to find other members from citizens or communities to participate in committees. So if we want to have well-rounded committees with people that know what they're doing, I don't think we should limit the pool of talent by saying they have to be residents. So I'll stop there.
Nate?
Thank you, Ron.
I think that the path that I know that happens frequently for village board is plan commission to village board. There's been a number of people that have gone through there. I went through that path. And I think that we absolutely have two distinct committees there that have got state requirements for residency. And that makes sense. And I don't think that to reiterate what Don said, we're not taking these opportunities away from residents. We're simply expanding the pool so we can get more inclusive. And sometimes having those people beyond the boundaries of the village gets us connections and is able to do more things. I mean, I know that with Brian Fitzgerald, he's been extremely helpful on getting connected on there. And I have to say, like somebody like Bill Anderson on the Outdoor Recs, he is pushing to say, okay, well, let's think beyond the village. And that's a great perspective to have, that helps the village. But if there was a village resident, I think it'd be perfectly reasonable for the village board members to say, you know what, everything else is equal. We want a resident, or there are residents that want to go, so we're going to choose the resident over a community member. But that's not what's happened.
Okay, so so then if you don't want to prevent residents from participating, then, and in so stating that, there's opposition to the two residents going for the two spots as they're written in the bylaws as they stand today. If you're not interested in preventing residents from serving, we have two before us that want to serve. So how then do we, what direction do we give to Julie to redraft a bylaw for the Marina Committee so that what you just said, Nate, comes to pass? You don't think residents should be prevented from serving, so how then do we rewrite a draft of the bylaws to allow everyone not satisfied tonight to become satisfied? Mary and then Denise.
I'm so sorry. I just had something come up with my family and I don't know how to deal with it.
Please
So,
take care of it, Mary. Just go, please go ahead.
okay, thank
Take
you.
care. Yes, thank you.
Yep.
Denise?
So I think we leave that up to Julie, whether she comes up with the wording community members or something else, whether we add to any committee that legally we can, that is not a statutory committee, that there's an option for somebody who has expertise pertaining to the functions of that committee. We throw it back onto Julie's plate as she pulls out her hair and curses all of us. And take it from there.
Okay, so let's see if we can agree on some direction with that. So then, how many people do you want added from a community member with expertise? How many members do you want added to the Marina Committee, Denise?
None. I said 5 was fine.
Okay,
Okay, so we at this point have 3 trustees. And we have Fuzzy, which I hate to lose. He has 30 years of experience. He's got a boat he keeps in there. Same with Dwight, all the years that he's got. At the same time, I hate to lose Pat.
okay, so how does this sound, Scott? How does this sound? If we agree this evening that we're going to add 2 community members at large to the committee, make it a 7-person committee, and let Julie come back with, a bylaw draft saying it's now 7 members with, and if we have agreement here this evening that we're going to create 2 more spaces, and it sounds like everyone's agreeing, the sentiment is Dwight and Fuzzy should fill those 2 spaces. So if we come to an agreement that we're making it a 7-person committee and we're going to create those 2 community members at large for those candidates, then can we not vote on the 2 candidates here this evening?
Rob, can I bring something up? Why don't you vote on the 2 in front of you so you at least have a legal committee and you can conduct a business?
Tomorrow.
And then,
I don't want to vote on them unless,
well,
unless,
and then I'll bring back those, what we're talking about, some ex officio language or something, so that we can try and
I'm not,
amend the code.
then
amend
we'll
the
just
bylaws,
table
so-
it. Then we'll just table it, because that's, you're asking for something different. What I'm asking for is if we can get agreement to bring the 2 residents onto the committee as it's stated in the bylaws now, bring them on with the agreement that what's going to transpire is a revision of the bylaws to extend it to a 7-person committee with the 2 additions being community members at large to be Dwight and Fuzzy. So that
I
what we-
don't know that I'm necessarily in favor of keeping it at 7 from the prior conversation that we've had.
Okay, well then,
Who's the third village board member on Marina?
On
Oh,
Cox.
Don.
got
Okay.
Don and Chad.
Okay. Sorry, Don, I didn't remember.
I'm all in favor of making it a 7-person committee so that Dwight and Fuzzy have spots. I'm not in favor of turning this into a resident against non-resident, non-citizen community at large members.
Thank you.
I don't think that serves the good, I don't think that serves the good of the community or the good of the marina. Denise?
I have a question for the 2 other Marina committee members, seeing that we have lost Chad. I know a lot of times there's 3 village trustees on almost every committee that we have. And I guess I've never asked the question before, is that the right number or is that too many? And I'm specifically asking you guys about Marina. You know what your meetings are like. You know the information, you know the projects that you're involved in, versus any other committee. So I'm just asking.
Denise, I would be under the opinion that 5 would be fine. I'm not totally opposed to 7. That makes an awful big committee.
Yeah, and
It was 7 before.
I would say that I don't necessarily believe 3 trustees are necessary for the Marina Committee. I think 2 are more than enough.
Okay.
So here's my question in that regard. Why would we want to be going down the road of figuring out how we would take 1 seated trustee off of the committee before the next election when committees get reassigned?
Mhm.
So I get the fact of your question, Denise, and I get the sentiment, but under the context of the here and the now and what we're dealing with, and considering the fact that we've never had any trustee serving on that committee step forward and say, you know what, it's really too much. Do we have a problem by just continuing to go down the road with 3?
I don't think it's a problem. I think Denise asked the question and I gave an answer. That's as simple as that.
Yeah.
Okay,
Wasn't a judgment, just didn't seem like 3 was necessary, and it's okay if there's 3 on there, whatever.
okay. So we had it was 7 people before. So what we're essentially doing is saying it would be the same size. So would you, if you're concerned about size, Scott, would
That's-
you,
That's true.
would you, how do you feel it would be received by Fuzzy and Dwight if they were brought forth as the new alternate members who would have voting rights if they were needed? And in fact, would that make sense to continue having the alternate voting members like we did? And would it make sense to the fact that, well, then now they're actually people that are community at large members? So, and my understanding is they can be called in, they can choose to attend a meeting. And, so we'd be going back to like how it was. Which again, nobody came forward initially and said, hey, we got a problem here, we got too many people.
We got too many people.
Well, who thought we had two?
Let's see, Dwight started out as an alternate, I believe. Isn't that what he was, Julie?
Yeah, he still is. Yes.
But Fuzzy was not an alternate.
Yeah, I'm not sure how Fuzzy's a citizen member. No, I take that back, Scott. Fuzzy and Dwight are citizen members, and it was Pat and Corey that were the alternate members.
Okay.
My
Dwight
understanding
stopped
of the,
being an alternate when Pat was no longer a trustee.
my understanding is being an alternate member of the Marina Committee means you can attend whenever you want, and whenever
Correct.
you attend, you can vote. So do we want to just return to the size of the committee as we had before? 3 trustees, 2 residents, 2 community at large members. And if so, which it doesn't sound like anyone has a disagreement with,
No.
can we move forward then saying we're going to approve the 2 residents that are put forth tonight, and that upon Julie's presentation of the new wording of the bylaws at next month's meeting, approve Fuzzy and Dwight as the voting alternates?
Sounds good.
Okay, so
Sounds good.
okay, so then I will motion that we vote to approve Pat and Vilius as the resident members, and to approve Fuzzy and Dwight as the voting alternates to be added to the committee next month.
Can I second that?
Mhm.
Okay.
All those in favor say aye.
I
Opposed? Motion carried.
didn't know if there was a conflict of interest there, so.
Rob,
Okay.
can I just answer something that was raised or discussed earlier? The comment about the citizen member. My research showed that was in the bylaws for over 10 years, so that just answers that question. And then the other question was, why are we having resumes? We've never seen resumes before. This goes back to when we had the discussion about appointing Mary to the Plan Commission. I think it was the Plan Commission, Mary Devley to the Plan Commission. And more than one board member said, Julie, you shouldn't be putting anybody on this agenda without a resume or a bio. We want a resume or bio, or don't bring them to us. So that's why you're seeing resumes and bios. So just clarification on that.
Okay. So moving on to 11C, Parks, Property and Streets Committee needs 2 residents, 1 appointed to complete the current term through, that would be through the end of the year, Julie?
Yes,
Or- Okay, and then the other effective January 2nd, 2023. I'm assuming, Julie, am I correct to say that we have Shelley Sangster as a resident candidate before us to be the appointment to complete the term?
yeah, and let me just double check real quick on the expiration of that term.
Okay, while you're checking, I'm going to babble on.
Denise, can I ask one question?
Yes,
Simple question. Have other people applied, expressed interest in this position?
So I can answer that question. So we had 3 people express interest. We had Shelley. Just real quick, Shelley is new to the area. She's a resident on Ava Hope Court. She's in the new apartments. She gave us a bio because she had to give us one. She said, I'm going to quick give you a bio, but it doesn't really express my interests. She's a big cycling enthusiast. Then we had, I'm trying to think of his name. He knows Don Cox. He said he knew Don Cox.
Dennis Beaudry.
Yeah, and he is not a resident and he doesn't have property here. So you're going back to that same thing again.
No, he's a citizen. He has property. He has a house on Scandia.
You're right, but he needed to be a resident. You're
Right.
right.
Correct.
That's
He's a
what this is.
citizen.
And then we had Louise from SBAA. And I know I had talked to Randy about that, as did Rob. Rob ended up actually calling him. And based on the fact that she was a subcontractor, legally, we can't have her appointed. Randy had some ethics concerns, conflict of interest. I should say ethics, but conflict of interest concerns with that appointment as well. So Shelley was the only one that met the legal qualification, so to speak, to be presented to you, and that's why she was in the packet.
Denise?
Don, what was that person's name again? I didn't hear you.
Yeah, his name is Dennis Beaudry, and he just lives, he lives on Scandia. They've owned house there for about almost 4 years now.
Okay.
Yeah.
The name is not familiar.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Julie.
I was going to say, I do have his resume here if you want me to look it up and tell you what his qualifications were.
Yeah.
I make a motion to deny Shelley. I don't think she should have been brought forward without something current that talks about who she is, what she does, when she says she's still a hairdresser in Santa Monica, because it's 2016 to present. Parks is big and Parks is important, and it's really important to me. And I'm just not comfortable with that.
So Denise, am I hearing you say that essentially we should table her, considering her until we have a current resume?
No, I said I would make a motion to deny.
Okay. So then, just so I understand, Julie, in a case like this, were we to vote on denial and denial would occur, would the person be excluded from providing an updated resume and then having an opportunity to get themselves known, whatever that process would be, to qualify as a candidate down the road?
Yeah,
Or,
she could reapply. She could reapply.
okay,
This is why we do resumes, I guess, right? The question was, why are we doing resumes? This is so you know about the person.
okay,
I guess I would be, I mean, I know you made that motion, it hasn't been seconded, but I'd be a lot more comfortable with tabling it to send her the message that, hey, we'd like you to engage with us, instead of, no, we don't want you to be involved, and maybe ask her to come to a board meeting. It's just, we can get her on the first part of it so we can talk to her and have an interactions with her. So we can make that judgment. I understand what you're saying, Denise, that we don't have enough information.
okay. So do we have a second to Denise's motion? Hearing none, I will
I'll
say
second
that.
it. I'll
Who
second
sec-
it.
Did I, who was the second? Scott,
Me.
okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Opposed? So we've
Aye.
got a
I'll make
3-3.
a motion.
Hold on, let me just clarify. We've got a 3-3 tie because apparently,
There's like 5 of us.
5.
oh, right, well, all right, right, Mary's not here and Chad's gone. Okay, so actually, so we've got a 3-2 opposing the denial.
Right.
So Nate, you wanted to make a follow-up motion?
I'll make a motion, we table this and ask that she come talk to us.
And update her resume.
Or, I mean, she doesn't need, if she comes to talk to us, I mean, I think, in my opinion, that would negate the reason, the need for that, but if others feel she needs to, that's certainly.
I think if we're asking it from other people, then yeah, she should still bring in a new one.
Yep, I agree.
Okay.
Resume or bio.
Yeah,
Something
and
that's
I
current.
don't, and maybe Julie, you can direct people that if your resume has nothing to do with the committee, being a hairdresser has nothing to do with parks, then tell us why you're interested in being on parks.
Yeah.
What are your interests? Is it gardening? Is it cycling? If she's a cycling enthusiast, maybe she should be on Nate's committee.
Yeah, and that's where she did say, she did image, she said, I'm sorry, I haven't had time to update it. That's when she had told me about her experience, and I said, I can relay that to the committee, which is, or the board, which is what I did do. But we'll have her update her resume and we'll put that on next month's agenda.
Okay.
Okay. Excellent. Okay, moving on to item number 12, committee reports. Administrative Committee, nothing to add tonight. Coastal Byways, Mary is not with us. DCEDC, Mary's not with us. Emergency Management Plan Committee, I think we know what we know about the future of that after this evening already. Denise, anything to add?
I'm sorry, I wasn't listening to you.
Did you have anything to, it wouldn't be the first time, don't worry, I'm not taking it personally.
Good.
Emergency Management Plan
Oh,
Committee, do you have
no.
anything to add to everything else you discussed already this evening?
No, thank you.
All right, 5, Finance Committee, Denise.
No, we dealt with some of those issues tonight. We're all good to go.
Okay, Fire Board, I believe was canceled. Scott, do we have a new date yet?
The new date has not been set.
Right, okay, thank you. Green Tier Legacy Community Committee meets on the 28th. I have a question for Nate and or Paula. I see Paula's still on. If you guys could give me an update as to why the owner of Woodcrest Village reported that the Green Tier Committee, as represented by you two, were going out to look at trails.
That's news to me, Rob.
Okay, that's why I'm bringing it up. It sounded very strange. I said Green Tier Committee would, I'm the chair of the committee. If we were going to be going out doing reviews, I would suspect that
Can
the
you
Green
say
Tier
who that
Committee would know
was?
about it. That it was you guys, that you guys were going to meet with him, you and Paula. That's not the case?
No,
We did get an email from Julie, but I had never heard anything up to that point about Nate and I doing that. But we did get an email from Julie.
So that was just a wild, strange occurrence there. Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
All right. Historical Society, Scott?
We met on the 3rd of November. Update on fundraising for the foundation on the barn. We're have some substantial donations. We're about halfway to our goal. So that's coming along fine. Other than that, most of the meeting was preparing for the Christmas market.
We're getting background noise from somebody. Okay. Thank you, Scott.
Okay.
Ad hoc land acquisition, Chad is not with us. Library Commission, Mary's not with us. Marina Committee,
Minutes are in the packet from last month. So I'll take any questions. We are meeting tomorrow.
right, and Marina Fest, Scott, am I correct to say we're meeting Thursday?
That is
and
correct.
There's
Are
nothing
you,
else?
are you still going to be driving?
No, I'll come at 4:30 and then I'll just have to leave about 10 after 5 and
Okay.
maybe we'll be done by then.
These meetings are generally
Yeah.
fairly short.
Yeah, so
Okay.
thanks. I wanted to be there in case, because we're finally giving the deadline of this is how long we're gonna be involved. I wanted them to have the opportunity to, have both of us there to do.
To yell at you?
Sure, yeah, yeah,
They're aware of it.
yeah. That wouldn't be the first time either, so, and I wouldn't take that personally, so.
Okay.
All right. Okay, ad hoc outdoor rec and transportation who did not meet with the owner of Woodcrest Village. What else, Nate? Anything?
So we had right up in the pulse about 2 weeks ago. That was nice. And then tomorrow morning, I'm going to do a podcast with Miles. I'm sure that some of the stuff we're working on in the village will come up amongst other things. So that should be coming out in a week or two. However fast he can get that done.
A podcast for the committee?
It's a podcast. It's just Miles and I are talking cycling. Inevitably, some of the work that's being done in Sister Bay that's come through that committee is going to come up. I mean, that's part of what the things we were talking about.
It's a personal podcast. It's
Yes,
not
it's a personal podcast for, I'm just saying it's relevant to this.
Right. Excellent. Parks, properties and streets. We had a productive walkthrough with the waterfront park meeting noted in the packet. Personnel committee has not met.
Rob,
Yes, Denise?
I have some comments on the parks minutes
Okay,
that I just want to bring up now so that they're correct next time parks meet. On page 281, under number 2, it said Kadanko and Berto indicated that there should be bike racks on both sides. I disagree with that. I don't think 6 to 7 feet of a sidewalk going to the bathrooms is going to be enough for bike racks on both sides and possibly a repair station. And then on 282, a discussion on adding more accessible equipment took place, and all agreed to look at the former Wilsey site as the accessible playground and not add more accessible equipment to the waterfront park at this time. I am against that. So all did not agree. It may have been a majority. Number 6, it talks about, Berto noted how even the ground is. It should be uneven. And under number 9, it talks about restrooms at the marina should stay open until boaters are done launching. It's for the fishermen. That's it.
you're saying the boaters would be prevented from using them?
No,
Or what's driving it is because of the fishermen?
right. They're,
Okay,
yeah, they may have boats, but it's the fishermen. It's not people.
Okay.
Just so there's some clarification.
okay.
That's all. Thank you.
Plan commission, Denise, anything?
Anybody have any questions on what we're doing or not doing? Okay,
Okay. SBAA, we had a very productive meeting. The new auditing firm that SBA is using, Bacon Group, was brought in to participate in the meeting. Based on, we have new auditors. We're not using Kerber Rose for that anymore. A couple of the things that the new auditing team noted was that there has been a lack of the SBAA board reviewing the annual budget in open meeting as required. And there's been a lack of SBAA employees and board members using the required expense reimbursement declaration forms. SBAA and Louise being very proactive, and Drew being very proactive about the findings of the new auditor, including leading us through being flexible with changing dates of meetings so that we can have those new auditors present at the next couple meetings to make sure progress keeps getting made with them as they now take a much more active role in supporting us than we had with Kerber Rose. Tourism zone meets Thursday.
Hey, Rob,
Yeah,
I just want to throw something on SBA. I had the time to attend SBA's annual meeting last Monday. And I just want to say that was a really great thing to get out there and see some of the stuff that SBA does. There was a great video they had about Fall Fest that Peninsula Filmworks did. I would encourage, I'm sure that's on YouTube. I'm sure Luis could get us a link to that. And It just was really well done, and I think that it also, I think this is the last, or the, I guess there was one board meeting since Fall Fest, but I see Luis and Ellie on here. I think it's a good time to say thank you for all the work that they did for Fall Fest. Good work, and that was a lot of hard work, and the village appreciates it. I do anyway.
Thank you. Tourism Zone meets Thursday. Sewer and Water Utility Committee has not met. We'll meet next month. Do I have a motion to approve the committee reports as presented?
So
So
moved.
moved.
Motion by Berto, second by Baker. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 13, executive session. Consider a motion to convene into executive session pursuant to Wisconsin statutes 19.851G to confer with legal counsel concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation in which it is or is likely to become involved. Subpoint strategy to be adopted for annexing land at 8:46 PM. I motion that we move into closed session.
Roll
Second.
call.
Yeah, Zashki, yes.
Baker, yes.
Hell, yes.
Berto, yes.
Cox, yes.
Okay, as of 8:46 PM, we are in closed session. Hi.
Again, okay.
Okay, at 9:02 PM, I will motion that we return to open session with roll call. Zashki, yes.
Baker, yes.
Hell, yes.
Berto, yes.
Cox, yes.
Okay, at 9:03 PM, we are now back in open session. And regarding the closed session, we have consensus that we will schedule a public hearing before the Plan Commission. Moving
Second.
along to item number 14, matters to be placed on a future agenda or referred to a committee official or employee other than previously noted this evening. Is there anything we did not note that needs to be targeted for a future agenda or referred to a committee? Hearing none, I will motion at 9:03 PM that we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Julie?